Hi, I'm Greg Dell with Attorneys Dell and Schaefer, and today attorney Alex Palomar and I are going to discuss a recent case against Hartford Disability Insurance Company that was not handled by our law firm, but it's unfortunately a common issue that we see, and we receive the phone calls from potential claimants that want to hire our law firm, and it deals with a claimant whose lawsuit was basically denied because they didn't comply with the statute of limitations. So talk a little bit about the limited facts we know about this case, and then we'll talk about some ways that claimants could avoid this situation so it doesn't happen to them.
Right. Well, this guy, he worked for Flower Foods and became disabled sometime in 2011. And he filed a claim for short-term disability benefits, and those benefits were paid for a year. His short-term policy was actually longer than normal policy, paid for a whole year. And after the year of short-term, the long-term disability insurance policy should have kicked in. I note that Hartford, he applied for long-term disability, Hartford did a review, and I guess the review went on for a long period of time, and I guess they asked for more and more information, and they ultimately denied his application for long-term disability benefits, and then they denied his appeal as well.
Let me just talk to you about that a second, because we have a lot of claimants who call us either denied short-term or on short-term going to long-term, and that's not always just an automatic transition. That's probably one of the most common areas that we see a denial is going from short-term to long-term, and we've helped thousands of people transition from short-term to long-term because even though it may be the same company that's doing short-term and long-term, and sometimes it's a different company, there's still a totally new evaluation.
And the company, even if it's the same company, they don't even work together. It's like
Right.
you have one body and the left arm doesn't know what the right arm's doing. It's insane. You would think that it'd be a stress-free, a smooth transition, but the insurance companies don't make it that way. And it's crazy because if someone's disabled, the last thing they need is to worry about this. It should be it should be easier for the disabled person, but insurance companies don't work that way. So in this instance, the guy was denied long-term disability benefits. His appeal was denied. Again, this case was not handled by us, obviously. He found an attorney who filed the case in state court in Mississippi where the guy was located. The problem with that is his case is a group disability insurance policy that was governed by the ERISA laws, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, which are federal laws. So filing it in state court, first and foremost, was just a total mistake. The second mistake that happened was they waited until, I think, in 2017 to file this lawsuit. And I think their thought process was that he was denied, his long-term disability insurance claim was denied in 2014, and they thought they had 3 years to file a lawsuit from the time of the denial. Well, they're actually wrong. And the federal judge, because ultimately they filed the lawsuit in federal court, they filed it in the right court ultimately, and then Hartford moved to have the case dismissed for saying they waited too long to file this lawsuit, it's now time barred. And ultimately the judge ruled in favor of Hartford because in fact they did in fact wait too long.
So what was interesting about this case, first of all, it was unusual that from having all of the short-term paid, and then it took, for whatever reason, we don't know the detailed facts, but it was like a year and 10 months later, Hartford denies the long-term disability. And then for some reason from that date of disability, this particular claimant waited another 3 years to file the lawsuit, which was just waiting. So I don't know if the claimant didn't get around to doing anything, or the law firm that had it sat on the claim. We have no idea what happened there. But the important thing here is that couple things. Number one is that if you get denied on your long-term disability appeal, you got to immediately get in touch with an attorney and file your lawsuit right away, because there is no sympathy from these companies. If they have any opportunity to get out of the claim, they're going to jump on that opportunity, and that's exactly, what happened in this claim. The other thing is, while Hartford was taking, almost 2 years to evaluate this claim, what do you think, Alex, this claimant could have done to accelerate this process?
Well, obviously get the medical records and get all of his medical records into Hartford as soon as possible. But the one thing I have to stress, that Hartford's sitting there saying, oh, we need this, and they're basically taking up so much time. You have to realize the clock is already ticking for you to file your lawsuit. So Hartford could be, wasting time on purpose to again, lack of a better term, screw over the little guy. So you have to realize as soon as your claim as soon as you become disabled, you should start thinking about the fact that you might only have a limited amount of time to file your lawsuit. So no matter what Hartford says, no matter what any potential attorney that you speak to says, the clock is probably already ticking. So if you've been denied, you need to contact us as soon as possible so we can actually do an evaluation to see when your lawsuit needs to be filed. And we're not even going to wait to the deadline. We're going to file it almost immediately as soon as we get the case, because it's just foolish to wait longer than as soon as you know that you're disabled and your claim has been denied. time.
Right, and the claimant in this particular lawsuit we're talking about argued to say, well, they kept asking me for more and more information. I kept giving it, and it's not fair that I'm being penalized now because they put me off for so long. And the court was like, look, the policy says you have 3 years to file your lawsuit, and the fact that they kept asking for information, that's why they give you 3 years, is so that you have this period of time. Now, if we were handling the case, I would have thrown the ERISA regulations at them, basically saying, look, you have 45 or 90 days to evaluate the claim. We gave you everything you want. You now have exhausted you're not exercising your administrative capabilities, and we're just going to sue you if you're not going to make a decision. Better safe than sorry to go ahead and sue them. Then possibly the judge says, no, you jumped the gun, we're going to remand it back. But at least you took all reasonable actions to try to get them everything, and now you protected yourself and still have a claim.
Right.
So this is a case-by-case analysis as to when is the right time to file a lawsuit, but don't mess around and sit back and wait on these claims. Usually most people don't because they need the money.
Exactly.
They can't afford anyhow to wait. So it's not that common, that we see someone go so long waiting for the company to pay them, especially when they have no source of income. But anyhow, whatever the situation is with your disability claim, feel free to call any of our disability lawyers. We'll always offer you a free, immediate phone consultation, and we look forward to the opportunity to speak with you.